Denis Liam Murphy is the only blame recovery coach in the world, coaching high-performing individuals by taking them through the blame recovery process. Denis wants to change the course of history by helping people recover from an addiction that they didn't know that they had. In addition to this, he's co-founder at RoundTable Global, a leadership and development company transforming teams and company cultures. And he has just published his first book, which is The Blame Game. And he joins me today. Hi, Denis.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Oh, great to have you here. Let's get straight into it.
Yeah.
Because you started your personal development journey many years ago, whilst traveling around the world. Tell me what inspired you to go so deeply into philosophy during your travels.
Well, funny enough, it started when I was probably around 14, actually, when I first came across Bruce Lee, the Chinese superstar, martial arts superstar. And I became obsessed with his fighting style. That's, a lot of boys around that time, that's what they became attracted to. And it was also at the same time, there was a TV show called Kung Fu with David Carradine. And it was set in the Shaolin Temple. But I suppose at that point, I didn't realize I was obsessively watching these programs, but not realizing the Eastern philosophy that was there that I didn't understand, but it was like unconsciously, it was seeping in. And then I started to get into martial arts, and so again, the instructors would be talking to you in terms of Eastern philosophy, or later on about Japanese philosophy, because I did karate as well as Wing Chun Kung Fu. So, and there was another TV show called Shogun. Do you remember that?
Oh, I don't know if I do. Might have been before my time.
Maybe. Or maybe it was because it was set in 17th century feudal Japan.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't my
wasn't no. But it was definitely something that triggered an interest in me. And so I started to really get involved in that Bushido, the way of the samurai warrior. And it was just, I suppose it was just early influence on that level that then went away. Until I went to university and studied East Asian studies, which was then the business practices, the cultural, the philosophy of China, Japan, North and South Korea. So unknowingly, it started innocently by looking at the martial arts movies, and then became a real interest. And it wasn't until, when was it? Oh man, my memory. But when I was on a chiropractic course, in Miami, that's when I was 36, 37. So many years later, that's when I had a synchronistic meeting with a lady that I met at university 15 years before. So I'm on the beach, literally reading my manual, and I hear, "Oh my God, Mr. Murphy." And I look up and there's Helen. Basically, she's been on this walk around Miami and found me in that 2-hour window. And she'd already been on this philosophical journey because her father died like 5 years before, and it made no sense to her. So she just went around the world and she studied neuroscience. She'd done a master's in it. She went all on these spiritual journeys. And so when we started to get together, and obviously we met again when we were in London, and she just gave me a funnel of information. And she would say, "Out of all those 1,000 books, read that one, and that one. We'll go on this course, we'll do this." And it was almost like I had a streamlined entry into philosophy and looking at the world differently. And then a lot of it, I realized, didn't actually help me heal, it helped me cope. And that's when I had that moment, which you're kind of talking about now, where 10, 12 years ago, I started to question everything I was ever told was true. And I mean, everything. And I went into isolation. I spent a lot of time on my own, just in that self-reflective space, and started to hear the word, the title of the book is The Blame Game. Yeah. And I started to hear that word a lot more. And that's what the journey was then about, seeing how that is in pretty much every conversation we have without knowing it.
Yeah.
And then I just really immersed myself into that kind of questioning and that philosophy of life.
Okay, so perfect segue into where you are at now, which is a very bold claim indeed, which is you claim to be the only blame recovery coach in the world. So touch on that more. Tell us about that, and how you became the first one.
Well, full disclosure, it's a self-proclaimed title. It's not like it was given to me. It's because I've been around, I've traveled the world, and I've been immersed in this world for over 15 years of self-development and healing, and whether it's shamanship or energy medicine, and I've just done a lot of different things, and no one has unpacked blame as much as I have in the way that I have. And then I obviously look around and no one's classing themselves as a blame recovery expert or a blame expert, because it's like, why would you? It's like, it's not until you fully appreciate the impact it has on our emotional, mental, and physical health, and how successful we are. When I started to realize that, that's when I, realized, oh, so I'm becoming an expert in this very niche market that impacts every single person on the planet. So that is my claim, that I'm the only one taking people through that blame recovery journey.
Well, as somebody who's experienced that and read the book, I can definitely back you up 100%. And actually, it really does impact everything, doesn't it, when you unpack it?
Yeah.
So of course, the reason I know that is because in addition to this, you co-founded RoundTable Global, where I facilitate as well, and that was over 8 years ago, and that's delivering these unique programs that we both know are frequently described as life-changing, which is amazing. Talk about the programs, the creation, and also what you believe makes them so impactful.
Yeah, when we first started RoundTable around 8 years ago, the premise was to bring the creative and the corporate worlds together. The people that came together at the start, we just understood instinctively that creativity is an innate human need, ability. We're creative beings. And so what we realized is that as a leader, you make your way through up the corporate ladder, and you're getting more successful, but you're actually engaging less with creativity. And there's that correlation that we realized: the less creative you are, the more stress you have. And so that was actually, the foundational ethos, or one of the main tenets of what we were offering. How do we bring the corporate and creative world together? Mm-hmm. And we did that in a beautiful way with the creative people that we brought in. And that's what we kept hearing. It was like, oh, I forgot how creative I am, and I can't believe I'm dancing again, I'm painting again, I'm singing again. And you hear that all the time when you facilitate. And then as well, we hear often at the end of a long day, they often say, I feel energized.
Yeah.
And it's like that, because they thought they were going on a normal leadership program where there's going to be PowerPoint presentations, there's going to be a lot of reading or something. And we obviously bring in the creativity as well as the intuitive way that we facilitate. And it's like just energy giving. It's refreshing to have those open discussions, to have those creative timeouts, to have those projects to do. And then the other stuff that I'll talk about in a minute. But that in itself, in a nutshell, was what made our programs, or make our programs, so unique. And then of course we have the philosophical red thread that runs through all the programs, is helping people on their blame recovery journey that they didn't know they needed help with. And so again, when we're in that place of then offering them about the impact of their blame addiction and how they can recover from it and everything else that comes with that, it's the light bulb moments go on. And it's like, sometimes it's really uncomfortable, that we know that it's a real journey to go through, but no other leadership program in the world offers that as part of their program. And that's because it's brand new, but very, very logical in terms of how it works and the impact it has and the recovery process that we take people through. That people are amazed. And the other phrase we hear so often after life changing is, why didn't we know about this earlier?
Yeah.
Our lives would have been so different if we knew this. And that's what makes, it's almost like those three elements: the creativity we bring in, that intuitive facilitation, where we've got a structure, but we're so good at feeding off the individual groups, and we're not afraid to veer and change that whole structure for the benefit of the group. And then the blame recovery process, and how we help people recover from fear that they've had for decades just disappears. And all of that is a unique offering for the leadership
It's interesting,
world.
isn't it? Yeah, my one of my favorite things about the program, other than seeing that light bulb when they go, in the realization that it's all stuff that they kind of knew, but it's putting it together in such a beautiful, almost musical way of doing it, is the fact that you see their shoulders drop, because suddenly when you release from all that fear and all of that blame, then that disperses. It's a really beautiful thing to see. And the face change in the faces, they look like they've been on a spa.
And that seems crazy to suggest, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But when you're hearing people go, when they come back the next day and the other participants are going, you look younger.
Yeah. Have you really been on a leadership program, or have you snuck off with the girls to the spa? Yeah, right. It's really interesting. And beautiful, and obviously they've evolved because we evolve over the period of time. So the programs just seem to get more powerful, which is amazing. Things evolving over time. Let's go there. You've recently, as we've mentioned, launched your first book, which is The Blame Game, which has been 10 years in the making. I'm curious, as you know. Tell me, why do you think you waited so long? And also, it's been out for a short while, although it's very hard to get hold of a copy because they seem to be sold out everywhere. What has been the impact so far from people that have read the book?
All right, so the impact has been great. It has, but I'm fully aware I hear from people that like it. I haven't heard from anyone that doesn't like it. If they're out there, I don't know. But I'm getting some lovely feedback from the people that have managed to get a copy of the book. And it's been lovely. It just confirms what I've known for so long. And, maybe going back to why has it taken over a decade to write. It sounds crazy when I say this to people, but my goal has never been to be an author. That when I started writing, it was just to get stuff out of my head, because I was questioning everything and my head was filling up, and it was like, I don't know what to do. And I was labeled with dyslexia as a child, and I didn't do well at school and stuff. So there was always that idea that, why would I even think I could write a book? There's no way that could ever happen. Yeah. So when I started to write it, it was literally a dump of stuff. And I wrote the book in that 10 years, probably 5 or 6 times from scratch.
I seem to remember.
Yeah. And I think you tried to read one of the versions at one point, but it was pretty tough. And so that was the goal here, was literally to get the information out of my head onto paper. And I always knew as well that I wasn't a great writer, and I'm okay to say that. And I know how much I've got better at writing during this process, but I wasn't ready. The philosophy wasn't ready. I still had stuff to do. So even if I was 5 years in and I thought, I'm good to go, we could probably publish this version, looking back, I can see I had stuff to go through. And I also saw that the way I was describing it wasn't going to get across what I wanted people to understand from it. And then another synchronistic meeting in California, and I meet someone that introduces me to Andy Earl, who has a company called WriteItBetter.com. And I paid for his services, and he helped me write the book that you've got today, which is it's a beautifully written book. And he helped tremendously. It took us 8 months of backwards and forth to get all of what's in there. And I couldn't have written the book without him in that way. So, it's huge kudos to him and his team on how great he is. And so that's why it took 10 years, because it wasn't ready, and I needed to find someone that could actually put it into absorbable.
Well, you know, as I said, having read it, it's beautifully written, really, really beautifully written. And you know, for something that is essentially it's quite a meaty topic for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially those that aren't aware that they have a blame addiction. But to be able to easily read something that that is that kind of topic,
Yeah.
volumes about the book, I think, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, highly recommend getting a copy if you can find one, because they're very rare.
Yeah, and Amazon have just said that they've moved it again from April to now it's the 11th of May.
Okay, oh, goodness me.
So,
Well, pre-order is definitely a good idea. And we'll put the links to be able to find that as well, so that you can get your orders in before anybody else gets theirs in. So I guess final question really, and a big wide open one. If you could change, and I think I might know what the answer to this is, if you could change just one thing in the world, what would it be and why?
that South Park is more available for people to watch.
Not what I was expecting.
I know. It is to help people with their blame recovery. You know, if that one thing, and again, it goes back to, because I've been coaching people for, again, nearly 15 years and taking people through this process, the changes are phenomenal. And then obviously when we created the company and took them through, we introduced that into the company, and the changes we keep seeing, and it's unbelievable. Even to the people that hire us, they can't believe the results and the comments of how they want everyone in their company to go through this process. So that's because we all understand what I answered earlier on about the creativity, the way you facilitate, and the blame. If people had more access to that in terms of the creativity, and as well as the change in terms of exiting their, recovering from their blame addiction, the impact on the world, as well as our own individual world, but our families and the world at large, will be tremendous, because there's only hatred, anger, abuse, violence, conflict in the presence of blame. And so it kind of makes logical sense. Less blame equals less pain in every aspect. And then suddenly you're now mimicking what happens in nature. And in nature, and that's why we've created the other leadership program called Symbiotic Leader, because we want to bring nature back into the office in the way that there's no blame or control in nature, which is why it flourishes out of control.
Yes.
So as individuals, as families, as well as organizations, we have the same potential to flourish out of control when there's no control and no blame.
Yeah, beautiful. And the thing is, obviously, as somebody who delivers the program, I live my life very much that way. And I'm quite hilariously, yesterday evening, I was talking about the fact that I often say on the programs now that my husband has absorbed Shine and the philosophies through osmosis. And I often hear him quoting things like, I wasn't energetically feeling that was the right thing to do. And we were joking about it last night. And he said, if there was a Shine exam, I think I could pass it. So it's true that when you live your life in that way, it definitely has the ripple effects in terms of impacting the other people around you. And, we do say, don't we, you change, and everything else around you changes. So that's beautiful. Wouldn't it be brilliant to take blame out of the world, hey? What a different world we live in.
Exactly.
Thanks so much, Denis. Really, really appreciate that. Of course, we'll put the links into RoundTable to buy your book and the website and everything, so that people can chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything you do for us. Thanks.